Hey Glam Squad, welcome back to another episode of Beginner's Guide to Makeup, the series that helps busy women with their makeup struggles in just a few easy steps. In my last few videos, we were discussing prominent eyes, and I shared with you my best tips for protruding eyes to complement them and to make them appear smaller. But in today's video, I'm going to show you how to enhance and accentuate one of your best features. So if you're interested, then let's get started. Today we're going to be creating a half-cut crease. So for today's lesson, you will need a neutral toned eyeshadow palette. I'm using the brand new Kat Von D eyeshadow palette, but anything that has neutral eyeshadows and a shimmery shade for the lid will work. I used 5 brushes, 2 blending brushes, one that's just a little bit smaller for the crease, a flat eyeshadow brush, a small flat brush for cutting the crease, and then also a angled brush for your liner. You will need a liquid concealer just like this one from Makeup Revolution, something that's not too watery or thick, and then lastly a gel liner just like this one. So the first thing you want to do is take your larger blending brush and hold it at the end of the handle for the least amount of pressure and control. You just want a really soft blend across the crease of the eye. Take your brush and dab the tip into a matte soft brown, tapping off the excess. Start blending the shadow back and forth just above the crease of your eye when looking straight ahead into a mirror. Don't bring the shadow down into the inner corner of the eye, instead keep it aimed towards the bridge of your nose. Keep redipping and following this technique until you're happy with the amount of intensity in the eyeshadow. You don't want it to be too dark, you just want it to be a nice soft wash of colour right across the crease. Take a blending brush that is a little smaller than the first, so you have more control on where the eyeshadow is placed. Hold the brush in the center of the handle for more control and dab into a matte shadow that is just a little bit deeper than the first, and follow the exact same steps to build up a little bit more depth and definition. Because the brush is a little smaller than the first, it won't bring the shadow up as high as the first color. Using the same brush and the same eyeshadow, you just want to use the side of the brush and dab it onto the outer corner of the eye. I should also point out that I always opt for warmer shades because they are complementary on everyone, but in next week's lesson I will show you how to create a look with cooler shades. So now we're going to move on to cutting the crease. You want to take your concealer and just pop a little bit on the back of your hand. You then want to take a really small detail brush. The smaller the better when it comes to cutting the crease because it is such a detailed job. It will just give you a lot more control when you have a smaller brush. Apply a good amount of product just on the inner corner of the eye right down to your lash line. Just make sure that it's nice and wet and you have a nice amount of product on there. Then you just want to roll your eyes around, look up to the ceiling and roll your eyes around. I know I look crazy right now, but I promise you it works. And exactly where the concealer ends up is where you should cut your crease for your eye shape. So this is going to work on all eye shapes. So the hard work is done for you. All you have to do now is just blend around the edges and just make sure everything is even. Then you can go back with your first eyeshadow brush and just a tiny little bit of that very first eyeshadow. I'm just going to blend around the edges, just make sure that the concealer is blended into the eyeshadow and there's no harsh edges. Just very gently, again holding the brush at the end of the handle, and just kind of blend around the eyeshadows. Just make sure everything is blended beautifully together. Now you want to go into that gorgeous shimmery gold eyeshadow. Again, any shimmery shade will work for this. I just opted for gold as I think it looks really complementary with the warmer browns and orangey shades. I'm using the same brush I used to cut the crease, and I'm just packing that gold eyeshadow right on top of the concealer. It's also going to set the concealer so it's not going to crease for you. I'm just applying a tiny bit on the brow bone to highlight, and then I'm going to move on to the darker brown eyeshadow. So you want to use a flat eyeshadow brush, and as you can see, just very lightly I'm just tapping this darker brown shade right on the outer corner. It isn't a really dark shade. I wouldn't recommend using like black or anything that's too dark. I want this to be a very soft eyeshadow look, so just a medium to dark brown is perfect for this look. I took a tiny bit of that dark brown eyeshadow and just placed it right across the lower lash line, and then I took my blending brush and a little bit more of that first eyeshadow and just literally blended back and forth just to make sure everything was blended smoothly together and it's not too harsh. This part is optional, but a thin band of liner is great for balancing out the look. I like to close my eyes and start in the center of the eye, dabbing the liner right into the lower lash line until you get to the inner corner of the eye, and then I do the same towards the outer corner, and then I like to finish with one final swoop right across the lid to make sure everything is even and looks nice and smooth. It is important to keep the liner really thin on prominent and hooded eyes because you don't want the liner to take over the whole look. And because your eyes are prominent, sometimes they can get confused with hooded eyes because the brow bone can droop down and make it look like your eyes are sagging. So that is another reason to make sure your liner is nice and thin so it doesn't hide that beautiful eye work that you've just created. I finished off the look with some mascara and lashes, and I also opted for some white liner on the lower waterline. Now, some people will tell you to avoid white liner on the waterline because it can make the eyes look more protruding. I personally love it on my eyes. I think it really accentuates them and ties the whole look together. However, if you feel like this is too much for you, you could opt for a black or brown instead, and this will give the illusion of your eyes being smaller. So that's pretty much it. I really hope you enjoyed this week's makeup lesson. If you got some value from this video, let me know in the comment section. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe before you leave, and I hope I get to see you in my next video. Bye!